Hey, hey, welcome back to Millennial Theramom. Today I am going to be sharing with you a little workshop slash webinar that I started off with more than 2 years ago, which is wild. When I first started Millennial Theramom, three concepts that really just blew my mind, that opened up my worldview of what it would look like to support mamas a little bit better. And because we are celebrating maternal mental health awareness as well as Mental Health Awareness Month this May, I wanted to make sure to just slow down and get us started by looking at some of these foundations. So let's jump in. If you're watching the video on YouTube, then you'll see some of the visuals I'm talking about. Otherwise, I hope that you still feel like you're learning a lot from the audio. And a little welcome in case you haven't met me. My name is Joanna. I'm a first gen Chicana bilingual licensed therapist in California who is also living currently in Jacksonville, Florida. And I have spent many years working with families and kids through community mental health, as a therapist, as a care coordinator, and so much more. And I am a first time mama. My daughter is now 2.5, which is bananas, but it's also around the same time that I started Millennial Thermom was when she was born, or specifically speaking, 10 weeks after she was born is when the concept got dropped into my heart. So I'm really grateful that you're listening or watching this just to get a little sneak peek at what were some of the first concepts I talked about. I think that these concepts, like I mentioned, blew my mind. I was like, wow, I want to teach people more about this. I want to have more intentional conversations about this. So, thank you for spending some of your time just learning about all these three things with me. So, again, we're going to be reviewing matrescence, la cuarentena, and grounding. The first thing that we talked about is the matrescence. So this is a developmental process of a woman goes through when she's becoming a mama. Most mamas experience this. And the wildest thing is that for many, some of the symptoms or some of the signs of matrescence kind of look like depression from the outside. Others might just feel like, no, girl, you're just depressed, or even yourself, you might just tell yourself, I'm depressed. But in this video, Alexandra Sachs talks about matrescence as this push and pull, which is very normal and very human to be pulled towards your child and making sure that your child stays alive, because that's how we've survived for centuries and generations, is that there has been a caretaker, and traditionally speaking, it has been the mom, though that's not necessarily what I'm saying is happening now. I think now we have a little bit more of an equal awareness of let's keep this baby alive. But at least generationally speaking, the mama's brain has gone through this huge process to make sure that our offsprings stay alive. And at the same time, we are still our own human selves. So while you have one part of your brain really pulling in toward your kid, there's also the other part of you that's like, I miss who I used to be, or I miss being able to just go to the store whenever. I miss sleeping. And unfortunately, a lot of moms feel like they're bad moms the moment that they have more than one emotion. For example, let's say they're feeling exhausted or overwhelmed. Then they might start feeling like they're a bad mom because they're supposed to be grateful. And here at Millennial Thermom, we acknowledge that mental health, motherhood is a whole spectrum of things, that it's not always rainbows and butterflies, that we're allowed to feel more than one thing at once. So if you're the kind of mama who is listening to this and or somebody who is hearing a mama say, like, I should be grateful, I should be more grateful, I want you to know that it's okay to feel not as grateful as you do. It's okay to feel exhausted. It's okay to feel overwhelmed. It's okay to feel tired. These are parts of the human experience, especially in a new season like motherhood. And there's always the both and. You can be grateful and exhausted. You can be tired and joyful. Like these are just things that our human body oftentimes experiences multiple feelings at the same time. So again, when we talk about matrescence, just normalizing that feeling guilty about not feeling grateful is normal. And you shouldn't have to feel guilty because it's also human. So I could probably share more about this, but I want to be mindful of time. And you can also watch this video. I recommend it. She does a great job at explaining it. There's also a book called Matrescence by Lucy Jones, and there's more resources around matrescence. But I want to just first make sure that as a community, we're tapping into that term this month, that we are connected with it, that we know that it's something that women go through. And also as a reminder that men and partners also go through their own putrescence. They go through their own shift of what does it mean to be a father? What's this push and pull look like for me? So that's how we'll get started. Definitely go check out. I'll link the video in the description as well. And one of the things that the video highlights is that when a child is born, so is a mother. And I think that's really important for us to hear because if you're anybody who's struggled with maybe perfectionism or high achieving or over functioning, you might feel like I'm bad at this mothering thing in the beginning. I know I did because breastfeeding was hard, latching was hard, connecting with my baby was hard. There's a lot of things that were hard that I thought were not natural or normal. And in this process of being a mama, working with other moms, a new parent, I have a lot of encouragement that we are learning alongside our babies. Yes, there are things that will come in as we practice them, but that doesn't mean that you're a bad mom just because there are struggles in your motherhood. It means that you are learning. And that's exactly what we're here to do. We're here to learn and grow. So, just a little encouragement that you are becoming. If you are a mother, a new mother, a seasoned mother, you are constantly becoming. And the visual, if you're listening to the podcast, you can't see this, but we talk about motherhood sometimes feeling like we're getting uprooted, right? Like we are don't know where we're at. We don't know what's happening. Everything feels like a storm or like we just went through a storm. So it's also very a normal, a very normal feeling to be like, what the heck is happening? And that's especially true for those of us who maybe have been high achievers, like I mentioned in the past. I'm gonna go ahead and share this audio from Gabor Mate.
When I was delivering babies, um, and I was talking to women who were really, really competent professionally, I'd sometimes say, listen, just watch out for this. Because the way you're used to yourself, the competence and capability that you genuinely exhibit in your work life, all of a sudden will not be available to you when you're parenting. It'll be 2 in the afternoon and you're still wearing your night clothes and you're wondering where the whole day has gone and questioning your competence. But that's the nature of looking after a baby and of not sleeping at night and all that goes along with having a new infant in the home. So you really have to let go of the expectations that all your life you've laid on yourself. Now, of course, if a person, male or female, has learned very early in life that the way they're acceptable to others or to themselves is if they're perfect, then that's deeply ingrained. And then that perfectionism then exacerbates the oppression because not only are you not feeling well, you're also falling far short of your self-imposed expectations.
So I thought that clip was really important, really meaningful because we talk about motherhood being a learning curve here. And if you are somebody who maybe has seen your self-worth as always being capable or never really making mistakes, then postpartum can be a very vulnerable season because it is a season of learning, a season of making mistakes, a season of not being good at something. So, again, just a little encouragement. If you are somebody who has seen yourself as high achieving in the past, being tender with yourself and bringing in that self compassion because you are learning alongside your baby. So, one way that I try to connect matrescence with this next concept, cuarentena, is that because matrescence is a process, I truly believe we need to have more rites of passages that honor the new mama and the new family forming. One process or one rite of passage slash cultural tradition that has happened in a lot of countries is the cuarentena. So this is common in some Latin American countries, and it's 40 days of postpartum ritual slash tradition focused on moms recovering, resting, and healing, integrating into this new role as mama, bonding with the baby, and being nurtured and supported both emotionally and practically, whether that's meals, chores, massages, etc. And I think this is really important because it allows us and encourages us to slow down and remember that this new relationship that we just gave birth to, quite literally, is worthy of attention and care. And that's one thing I've learned just in life. I feel like as a therapist, as a mom, as a wife, as a Christian, as all my roles, it's that the relationships are the number one thing that matters in our life. Our relationship with our creator, if you are a person of faith, our relationship with our loved ones, a new relationship with our kids, all that is really what gets us through the ups and downs of life. And the cuarentena is one way that we honor this new relationship being born between mother and child, mother and new father, mother and community. So, really just encouraging us to be open to embracing a cuarentena for ourselves, whether it's whenever we have a next baby, if we decide to, or encouraging our friends, our comadres, to be like, hey girl, like who's gonna like cook for you after you have your baby? Who's gonna tend to you? Who's gonna help with the dishes? Just to start rebuilding that village that many of us have lost. There's also this book called Thriving Postpartum, Embracing the Indigenous Wisdom of La Cuarentena that I had read about a couple of years ago, and it has a lot of real practical skills, but also like traditional practices. For example, avoiding cold showers and cold air, abdomen binding, herbal baths, covering your head and feet to stay warm, drinking hot liquids, and eating hot soups, and more. There's so many different ways that a woman's body is honored in the cuarentena. So definitely go check that out if you want to learn more. And it's not just in Latin America. Other cultures also understand the importance of mom receiving care and rest in this sacred and vulnerable season. So there is Sitting the Month in Chinese culture, there's Sam Chil Il, 21 days in Korea, rest and warm oil massages in the first 40 days in India, and so much more. So this is something that is possible. Providing parents more support is something that I'm growing in my passion about, like when it comes to advocacy, because part of it is as individual families creating that support around us, but there's also systemic support systems that could help us embrace this cuarentena, this transition a little bit more. For example, having better paid leave, giving parents access to take this time paid so that they can actually connect with their baby and not feel forced back into a hustle productivity like grind if they don't need to. Um, and specifically, as we talk about the United States, traditionally, postpartum care has looked like one postpartum visit with your OBGYN at 6 weeks, covering some very basic things like birth control, sex, exercise. But that can be very isolating. Mamas can feel and papas can feel very unsupported. There can be such an emphasis on, like, all right, kind of like bouncing back. But one thing I learned about postpartum is that we bounce forward. We become something new in the process of slowing down, tending to this new relationship, tending to this new role. We emerge from it a little bit different, and that's okay. I think a lot of us need to change a little bit. I know I've changed. I know I've become more fierce. I've become a little bit more loud, a little bit more empowered, and I love that for me. And I love that for anybody else, really. Whatever it is, the change that you need to become the kind of woman that you want to be, the kind of mom that you want to be, I embrace it. I say, let's embrace it. Let's change. Let's go through the work because it's worth it. And just again, touching back a little bit around our postpartum support here in the United States, we actually have 1 in 5 women experience a perinatal mood and anxiety disorder. So I want to also make sure to notice that there are clinical conditions that can be increased. The chance of them are increased when we are under supported. We don't have those systems in place that allow us to take time off, to slow down, to hire help, to hire support, to bring in the village that we need. So, just again, really mindful of new parents needing more support. And what some of the things that we can do here in the United States is prioritize and treat the fourth trimester as a critical time of healing and adjustment for new parents that sets the stage for long-term health and well-being. So that's what the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists said. So there's actually another book called The Fourth Trimester by Kimberly Ann Johnson. I definitely recommend it as well. It's one that I read and it talks about again that preparing for birth, but also the fourth trimester, which is those 12-ish weeks or so after birth. Another thing that we can do is help adjust expectations and learn to embrace good enough. Another thing is make a plan for what support can look like in postpartum and beyond. Another one is mother the mother and advocate for her needs. And then find or connect to support groups and support people so that we can process this new transition together. Shout out to the escuelita, to the cafecitos. If you don't know, you can visit millennialthermom.com and visit the escuelita tab. That is what this community is all about. It's learning how to pour self-compassion onto you so that you can care for yourself, for your mindset, for your spiritual health, financial health, physical health, whatever health is the focus. That's really what the escuelita is for, and the cafecitos are as well. So we can have real conversations around how are you taking care of yourself? Let's take a deep breath, that kind of stuff. We can also limit our social media. Social media has a big impact on us when it comes to comparison and just anxiety. So being mindful of like what content are we engaging with, what's harming us, what's actually feeding us, etc. Practice letting yourself rest. It's not being lazy, right? So letting yourself sit and just breathe and take in the sunshine or take in the breeze. Another one is challenging that mean, critical inner voice that will slash does pop up. Again, compassion, self-compassion is my favorite remedy for that. There's also talking about motherhood, matrescence, and more with others. Once you know that you're not the only one feeling this push or pull, this guilt, we can start to feel better because we need to be seen, heard, and understood. And being in community with other people who are like, yes, me too, can be really healing. And then last but not least, at least for this conversation, is embracing some grounding skills. So that brings us to our third topic, grounding. So we talked about matrescence, cuarentena, and now grounding. So if you're watching or listening to this, I just want you to think about what do you think being grounded looks like, feels like, sounds like? So what do you think being grounded looks like, feels like, sounds like? And you could take a pause here if you need some time. Otherwise, we're going to jump ahead. So some common responses for grounded is present, intentional, balanced, confident, content, connected, healthy, attuned, self-aware, patient, hopeful. And then we want to look at the other side. So what does it look like to not be grounded? It's fatigued, burnt out, extra irritable, extra annoyed, short fuse, restless, anxious, overwhelmed, hurried, sick, achy, more yelling, etc. So this was one of the first visuals that I started to look at when it came to thinking about how do we move from an intentional place? And I realized that moving from an intentional place did look like moving from a grounded place. So it wasn't that I'm 100% of the time calm or 100% of the time regulated. It just means that more often than not, I'm trying to move from my values. I'm trying to move from a present place. So it could look like I'm feeling overwhelmed. So I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to step back. And then I'm going to remind myself I'm doing the best I can. What do I want to do next? In any situation, whether you're changing diapers or feeding or whatever it might be, versus the alternative, which is just pushing through that overwhelm, not pausing, not breathing, not remembering our values, and just surviving through, which granted, there are moments for survival, right? I'm here to acknowledge that as well. But again, that's why we talk about getting back to grounded as often as possible because that helps rewire our mind, our body, our spirit to move from that place of intentionality and not get used to just reacting. Another way to see this is, am I moving from a place where I'm responding or I'm reacting? So again, taking the pause, taking a deep breath is a big way to do that, but we'll review a few other ways. So when it comes to motherhood, some of the ways that you could see on the screen if you're watching it visually is remembering our intentions and values when making decisions, journaling, just getting that out onto a piece of paper, taking some time for yourself to fill your cup, whether that's a bath, a movement, a solo store trip, mindfulness, going out into nature, asking for help, a meditation or prayer practice, a grounding, like a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, just paying attention to the sounds and the sights around us, taking deep breaths when we feel overwhelmed, self compassion, remembering you're already enough, community and real connection with other moms, other people who encourage and uplift you. In addition to these, you can also find grounding practices online. So grounding is a mindfulness-based practice that helps us focus on the present moment to help regulate overwhelming emotions, including anxiety, worry, racing thoughts. And it takes practice to live from this intention, this awareness, this presence. So I definitely want to encourage you to baby step even in that area. I mean, like, okay, what is one thing from the list that we talked about that I want to start including in my everyday, day to day, just to move from a more intentional place? And grounding will be hard just because we are human. That's it. We're human with a nervous system. So if you're watching, you can see this window of tolerance. Otherwise, I'll explain it to you. But for the most part, we have a window of tolerance, which is when we can tolerate stress and triggers effectively. We may feel more calm, more alert, more relaxed, more aware of our options. So we're a little more online, like plugged in. But life happens, so there might be times when we get dipped out of our window, and that might look like hyperarousal, which is maybe this more fight or flight, defensiveness, irritability, anxiety, fear, or we can dip into a hypoarousal when our nervous system is just like all of this fighting and flighting is not doing it. We might also go into a freeze, which might look more like a depression, a shutdown, easily giving up. So being mindful that at any given moment you're in one of these zones and giving yourself compassion regardless of what zone that you're in. And then there are things that can help us move out of hypoarousal or hyperarousal, aka fight, flight, or freeze, into our window. So I'm going to briefly go over it, but some things that can help us get back into our window is taking deep breaths, feeling our feet on the ground, or activating our nervous system by going on a walk, on a run, standing up, talking to a friend, etc. So those are all things that can help us move into our window. Very similarly to what we already talked about grounding. So if you're watching the video, you're watching my old website because I wanted to keep this as like throwback as possible. This is when it was created. This was when this content was first created for me. So, but overall, just help encouraging y'all that matrescence, cuarentena, and grounding are all important concepts I wish everybody knew when it came to preparing for postpartum or being in postpartum is knowing that I'm going to experience a change and it's normal. This might come with some push and pull feelings, some both ands, and that's okay. Learning how to navigate that with self-compassion is going to be key. The second one is a cuarentena, which is really just a reminder that many cultures and many traditions have already shown how vulnerable, how beautiful, how powerful, how transformational this transition is from being a woman to a mama and really leaning on our village to help meet some of those needs so that we can primarily focus on bonding with our baby and our family during those first 6-ish weeks, at least postpartum, if not more, if possible. But again, really embracing that slow down, that bond, that I don't need to be quote unquote productive. I don't need to earn my worth. I am already worthy. And my job right now is just to bond and to reconnect with myself as well. And then grounding, which is a more practical skills like breathing, like journaling, like self-compassion that we talk about here at Millennial Thermom. And I say that all of these things, they have found their way into the escuelita because it's my virtual way of trying to encourage us all to slow down, to be more tender to with ourselves as we become mamas, to embrace that help that we need, and to practice the little rhythms that are going to help us be well. So thank you so much for watching this, listening to this episode, special episode created for Maternal Mental Health Awareness Month. I hope that you all make sure to go download the free Grounded Motherhood guide. You can find that at millennialthermom.com or groundedmotherhood.com, as well as explore some free upcoming cafecitos as well as some special shop specials going on for the Escuelita for a new Grounded Postpartum series that will be starting on May 15th. So I hope y'all take care. Make sure to follow, subscribe, and share with a new friend, with a new mama friend in your life. All right, bye-bye. Thank you so much for listening to this conversation. I want to encourage you to keep nurturing yourself and your journey in motherhood, or to share with the mama that you know. First of all, I would love if you could subscribe or follow along to the Millennial Thermom podcast, Instagram, and YouTube channel to show your love, to show your support, and to make sure this information gets out to all mamas and new parents. Secondly, definitely go ahead and grab your free Grounded Motherhood guide at millennialthermom.com/free resource, or you can just look it at the tabs on the website. Check out the Escuelita, our virtual learning community, also on millennialthermom.com. And last but not least, you can explore the Grounded Motherhood Tiendita for cafecito links and few more goodies that are coming out soon, including a Spanglish poetry and journal. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope that you continue to nurture yourself and ground in your motherhood. Cuídense.